I mean, San Francisco is the heart of it all, right? It's where the original web-based company came from. Uber, Facebook, Google.
Here we are in the country of the gold rush.
I like the attraction park here, you know.
Speed is just part of the natural flow. Something that might take a month to develop in Washington, D.C., we can do here in 3 days because there's probably 15 companies trying to tackle that problem.
I think Silicon Valley is a really special place. It's really unique that you have so many different people who are like-minded, who want to solve large societal challenges and do it using technology.
People just really want to make a difference, and they find some unique way to do that.
We are flying from France to California to discover the Silicon Valley startup ecosystem. We will spend a whole month there. We have scheduled a lot of meetings with some of the major actors in the Bay Area. Among all the people we are to meet, Alex sold his company to Facebook in 2015. We will discover Google Campus in Mountain View and meet with Axel Brashett, who finances the companies acquired by Google. We'll go to TechCrunch and visit Tito Hamzi, the famous host of the Daily Crunch Report. Nicholas is another successful entrepreneur whose company was acquired by Apple in 2015. We will meet with him in downtown San Francisco. In view of exploring more deeply the specific features of Silicon Valley, we will visit its two main startup accelerators, Y Combinator in Palo Alto and 500 Startups in San Francisco.
Entrepreneurship is the engine that drives the economy, whether it be in France, in the US, or worldwide. Without entrepreneurship, your economy is not going anywhere.
The purpose of our trip is to get an accurate overview of what being an entrepreneur in Silicon Valley means and what the path to success may look like. We will go progressively from the process of getting an idea to the bright process of selling your company to a great corporation. Let's go behind the scenes. We're going to the University of California at Berkeley, on the other side of the Bay Area, to attend the Berkeley Method of Entrepreneurship Boot Camp, where ideas are floating all over the place and where students get a great amount of help and mentoring to see if their ideas are worth going on a journey. Indeed, before reaching awesome success, everything boils down in the beginning to finding an idea.
It's a short period of time where they bring in great instructors and great mentors and really help these entrepreneurs think about their next business and how to be successful.
And then learning from great instructors, people who have been there, from people inside business and outside business and academia. Just it's a lot of information jammed into a short 5-day workshop.
During that boot camp, students learn that it's all in their interest to share their ideas and their vision, explain their motivation for the product they want to build. Here at Berkeley, professors and mentors are here to challenge students and give them feedback on their ideas. As we watched students defending their ideas and their project, we got a hint of the energy that we are about to find when exploring Silicon Valley. And there is one main takeaway that we want to share. When working on your idea, you want to make sure to avoid one first mistake that is fatal to your project. And here is Alex Mayer, founder of dating website Zoosk, giving Berkeley students that first lesson on the road to entrepreneurship.
The first lesson is this: pursue product market fit at all times, at all costs, in every aspect of your life and business. This is a product, this is a market. You put the product in front of the market. This act of bringing product in front of the market is called marketing or sales. As an entrepreneur, and I would argue in your entire life, your job is this: find products that once you put in front of the customer, they buy it. That is literally, as an entrepreneur, is your first job is to determine the product that you're building or you plan to build or you have built or you're currently building, whatever, your customer would buy it if you put it in front of them. as cheaply, as quickly as possible. Why? Because 95% of the time, you would make the product, put it in front of the customer, and nothing happens. That is the truth. That is the statistics.
Did I make something that people want, that people are willing to pay for, or that I'm able to monetize through other means? So many people start companies, they raise money, they hire teams, but they never get product market fit. And so there's like a 0% chance that if you don't have product market fit, you're going to succeed.
So I think there's a lot of mistake that entrepreneurs make is that they're building something really cool that they would want themselves, and it's going to be better, and that's all that matters. And they're going to educate their customers about this new product that they're going to want. That almost never works. So what's really important is to build something that consumers or customers really want, and that you can prove that and verify it before you spend a lot of time building the product. There are actually almost always a lot of interesting ways that you can do tests or do experiments to validate customer interest before you actually build almost any technology.
We got it. Product market fit is a thing. Let's hear some entrepreneurs who will explain to us how they found it by testing, learning, and iterating.
I've spent not millions of dollars, but I've spent thousands and thousands of dollars on different ideas that I've tried pursuing and stuff, figuring out what works and what doesn't based off of customer feedback, and then applying those things that work. And some of them have worked out quite well. Some of them have been little companies that I've attacked that little niche and have made some money. And some of them have completely failed, and I just threw them off to the side. But that's the beauty of it, is you get to be very nimble, and you get to try many things. And over here in Silicon Valley, it's like you meet so many people that are trying to pursue their ideas, so you can talk to them and figure out what they're doing and maybe learn from that and then apply it to your idea. So
Alex's first company built virtual agents for customer service.
So you can think about like Siri, but for customer service. Actually, our idea was to make a very smart assistant for everybody. But we soon realized that first it was not feasible, technically too complex, and then nobody was ready to pay for that. So when we focus only on B2B for customer service, we solved both problems at once. First, it became feasible because the scope is smaller, it's easier to train artificial intelligence to do the job. And then the company is ready to pay for it because it can save them a lot of money because they get less emails and voice customer call.
Before joining Y Combinator as a partner, Dalton Caldwell founded iMeme after graduating at Stanford University. He is a good example of iterating.
Well, I think the story of iMeme is similar to a lot of the stories for startups where you end up trying a bunch of different things. Like it doesn't work right in the very beginning, and you end up having to iterate. And so the first version of it was a desktop client that you had to download, and that didn't work too well. People didn't really want to download software. They didn't trust it, understandably. And so we ended up moving the whole thing to just be a website. And then it started to take off more, and then we were able to focus more and more on music as being the most exciting thing rather than video and other things like that. And then we spent a lot of time doing deals with all the record labels, which took, again, a couple of years. And so all in, I think I worked on that for 8 years, 7 years. It was a very long time. And so it wasn't like I had the idea, oh, I'm going to make a music site and it's going to do this at all.
I use it in video all the time. I do stuff, shoot stuff, make stuff. If it's easiest for me to test something on a phone, I'll do that on a phone first, and then I'll use like a more high-end production camera. But so Lean Startup methodology is having an idea and then validating that idea. So if you have a hypothesis, right, you test it, you get customer feedback, you get feedback, your YouTube comments and whatnot, and then you apply that to make your product better. You pivot if you have to pivot. In my case, you just shoot another video.
That's the report for today. I'm Tito Hamzy. Crunch Report airs every weekday at 7 p.m. Eastern, 4 p.m. Pacific on TechCrunch.com. You can also find us on iTunes and on YouTube. And guess what, guys? We'll see you on Monday. Have a good weekend.
Pivot is one of those words that people use all the time that can mean different things. And so it was always called iMeme, but it was always about media sharing. And it was always about a social network media sharing. So in some ways, yeah, the feature set changed, the way we made the feature set changed, but it wasn't like a complete pivot. Don't
force your idea or your concept to someone else. Go find out what that pain is in the marketplace, what that need is from that customer, and solve that need. That'll greatly improve your chance of success. And then if you're not solving that, adjust your concept so that you really solve real pains for real customers who are willing to pay you for that solution.
On top of that, let's say that you do have product market fit, let's say that you are able to grow, then you need to really understand what the economics of your business are, if you're able to do something profitably, and if you're able to scale it up to get huge. So in the example of my first company, iMeme, we definitely had product market fit, right? That's how we got so big. And the issue was, at scale, we couldn't get positive margins. It cost us too much money to do licensing from the amount of money we were able to make from subscriptions. And this is exactly the same case with some of these other media startups like your Spotify's, your SoundClouds. People love those sites, right? They love them, but think about how much money they're making in subscriptions and how much they have to pay to labels. And there's a chance that even if you get to that scale of success, it still may not work. And the way that I would extrapolate that for startups in general is that the first and most important thing is, do I have product market fit? And then once you have that, it's like, does this actually work? Can I make enough money on a per transaction basis or on a regular basis to pay for all my costs? Because at the end of the day, it's got to do that. You can't just, go public on hopes and dreams anymore.
Very often, then comes the time when it becomes interesting to get VCs to invest in your company to be able to scale. But before getting their money, you need to be able to convince them and talk to them. We're back at Berkeley's Boot Camp, where students are taught the challenges of the pitch, which is an indispensable step before going in front of a VC.
Our next thing we're working on here is the elevator pitch. So each team is going to have 2 minutes to do their pitch, and then we're going to have 4 minutes of feedback from our mentors and experts here. So the big idea of the elevator pitch is that when you're starting a new startup, you have to be able to think on your feet and also be able to explain the whole idea of your startup in 2 minutes or less. Because really being able to concisely express what your startup is and the idea behind it is just really important, not only for talking to investors, but talking to your customers, and really for yourself as an entrepreneur to know exactly what you're going to do and what your plan is. So this is the next step that we're going to do right now.
Hello, I'm Chris.
Hey Chris.
How are you doing today?
Pretty good.
I really have this awesome idea that would work to solve medical adherence, which costs $100 billion annually in the US alone, as well as 125,000 lives in the US every year. So I think it's a really massive market, and it's a great idea. I have a solid team, and I'd love if I could have about 2 or 3 minutes to come by tomorrow, if that's possible, and give you the full pitch. You can meet the team, and we can bring slides and full working prototype if that's possible.
I think everybody's afraid of going in front of somebody and putting their work out there and their product and saying, I want you to write me a check to make this happen. It's a very scary thing.
You assumed that I knew half the things that you were talking about using very specific terms. You can't make that assumption, right? So you got to narrow down the jargon to what everyday people, the way they speak. What's in it for me? Why should I commit my time to meet with you? Because so far all you told me is you're going to send in a whole crew to tell me more jargon at a later time.
Mm-hmm. So the exercise of the elevator pitch, it's more about forcing people to think through what they're doing in terms of benefits and value in a short way so that they can express to you what this is good for and what it can do, and then you can tell them if you're interested in talking more or not.
You can have a great concept, a great idea, but if you can't tell the story, if you can't get people excited about it, if you can't convince them that you're excited and enthusiastic and you believe in what you're doing, then all of your energy is going to be misspent.
Here, everything is about storytelling, which is a very specific approach to the narrative, so that, like Hitchcock, for instance, did in his movies, you have to create a climax, a suspense, and you have to somehow connect the dots, as Steve Jobs explained to students. At this time it was at Stanford, but anyway, that works here also at Berkeley.
It's not just, we wanted to start a startup and so we made up an idea. That's not as great of an answer as people that maybe, I had a job working at this one place and I realized that we have this huge problem, and so I left that company and started this to solve that problem, right? And so people that find ideas that they find in the real world or products they really want, that's something we also look for.
They want to see that you have a logical path to get to where that target is, whether it be X amount of dollars at a 5-year point, but they have to know what's in it for them and why you're the one that should receive their funding. Pure and simple.
You know, you meet primarily people through networking. So you go to an event, you meet someone, and when these environments or opportunities happen, you have to be able to very quickly create or generate interest. You're not going to give me half an hour for me to explain to you what I'm doing. So I have to be able to very briefly give you enough of a feel for what I do for you to say if you're interested in not in talking more.
A great way to build up a good pitch is to understand what the VCs are looking for. Let's now look at the issue from their own perspective and understand their reasoning and their main criteria for selecting startups they want to invest in.
I invest in close to like 90 companies like a year at least, right? Like every other VC is sort of, who's the team? Do we think the team's good? Is there a real market here? Is this problem interesting? Like, you know, is this a major problem that leads to a large market? What does the competition look like? Is there downstream capital? We look at all these things, and so there's not one thing that we look at.
I think one thing we really look for is founders that are very strong technically. That does not necessarily mean programmers. What it means is they're able to build the thing they have the idea for. Imagine you had founders with a really great idea, but no idea on how to build it. You're going to have a tough time. So whether it's that you need to be a good programmer, you need to be a good scientist, you need to be a good mechanical engineer, whatever the skills that it takes for you to be able to make the thing happen, we look for that on the team. So it's not like everyone on the team has to necessarily be technical, but you want to see at least one founder that has the ability to build the thing that they want to build.
And the market has to get a high traction, a high pace in the growth and value creation potential. And then the team has to be, on the one hand, very creative to re-engineer and to create a very new value prop. And on the other hand, which is quite a paradox, to be very disciplined, because the team has to go through a very disciplined and timed execution of the plan. And then the third reason why an investor goes into a tech company is the business model.
You know, we're going to look at all the things I told you about. You know, is there a real market? Is this the right team? Is there a real opportunity? And if you mix it all together, is it the right team to take advantage of this opportunity today? It's not a perfect science. That's why there's such a huge rate of failure in the startup ecosystem. So you really don't have a perfect answer, but usually here in Silicon Valley, somehow you would be introduced to us through someone who knows you, knows us, and is willing to help with some level of indirect trust.
We also look for commitment in the sense that they're actually serious about it. Say you have someone that's like, oh, I have a startup idea, and once you fund me, then I'll start working on it. That's maybe not as good a commitment as someone that said, okay, I have a startup idea, and I'm gonna at least do some early customer acquisition. I'm going to try to have a first customer. I'm going to try to make the prototype. Whatever progress is, demonstrating that you're willing to make that progress before other people invest in you, that's usually a pretty good sign and something that I would recommend.
You know, at the end of the day, investment is a human business, and so you tend to meet people one way or another. You tend to meet them through your network, through common relationships, through an event, etc. But it remains very much centered and focused around the human relationship, because you are, you're investing in people before you're investing in a company. Keep in mind that everything can change: the product, the technology, the positioning, the pricing, but you can't really change the human aspects. And so the first thing that you look at and that you establish a relationship with is the person on the other side.
Most of angel investment is about the people, right? And it's always difficult to say no to an amazing friend and entrepreneur when you believe in the person and the culture that he has shown along all his life and all his professional life.
Indeed, Aurelia is investing in Edwin's company called Feedly. We are meeting them along with Michael Lamar, another investor in Feedly. They will help us understand the challenges of a fundraising round and highlight what is at stake in the relationship between an entrepreneur and his investors.
Picking the investors is probably one of the most important decision that you have to make.
And most entrepreneurs, when they want to raise money, they have to kiss a lot of frogs to find a prince.
For multiple reasons. I think if you get the wrong investor, it's almost like in a marriage where you're not, fully married to the right person.
So your relationship with your investors, it's hard to generalize. If you're just starting, it's your first company, you had trouble, you had difficulties to raise money, this relationship will be completely unbalanced to the advantage of the investor. You'll be just listening to them and say, yes sir, yes madam, and whether you like it or not, it would work like that. If it's not your first company, you've had success, you had a very successful start, and you are able to choose to pick your investors, then you are in the controlling seat. It will be a completely different relationship.
I think to make a successful, round of investment, you need to find one lead, what they call a lead investor, because you're not going to negotiate with 15 people. So you want to find, the first person that you like the most and go with that person, sit down, and with understanding of what are all the cards on the table, make a deal where they feel like they're winning and you feel like you're winning.
When you invest in the team, and you invest in also the milestones that the company already has made. So the percentage is directly connected to what is the expected next milestone to get to the next valuation level. And most entrepreneurs break through something that doesn't exist, that doesn't have an established base, that doesn't have a full market that's defined both in terms of who and how much. And basically it is your job as an investor to decide how much money you're going to put and how much money you think it's gonna be going at.
The biggest problem we see is when an entrepreneur gives too much away. And so when they get to later rounds, they really become, diluted so much that they're owning 5, 10, 12%. And then you kind of go, is this all worth it?
It really seldom occurs that the VC wins when the founder doesn't. It's about alignment of interest, and the alignment of interest is about discussing the business plan and then decide what is the point A, what is the point B, which is the destination, and then the execution of the plan to go from A to B, which is the responsibility of the management of the company, and backed up by the VCs as board members.
With the right terms, if you're in the right position and have a right valuation that's not overvalued, you can most likely negotiate better terms for yourself, and that sometimes may mean keeping the control of your company much longer because of special rights you may be able to put in. And as a founder and entrepreneur, I think being able to retain control of your company sometimes has much longer and lasting impact than being able to value your company a little bit higher.
If there is a success from the entrepreneur founder perspective, there is also a success from the VC perspective, just because the entrepreneur is the engine of the company and the VC is the gas of the company.
You're never going to be able to operate for them, but you're there to help them if they need your help. So you want to be able to trust them, and you want them to trust you. Typically when things are all good, then it's all very easy, but it's when things go bad that you want to make sure that those relationships are strong, and that the entrepreneur is going to feel comfortable coming to tell you, hey, this thing went bad, we need help, what are your thoughts about this, etc. And so you want to build that trust relationship over time so that you can have different levels of interaction based on the needs of the company. I don't personally believe in micromanaging an entrepreneur. You can never get their stuff done for them. You'll never know their company or their market as well as they do. But you can probably bring some external help and external look at the situation if they ask you for advice.
And it's hard for you to understand that actually sometimes the entrepreneur, they are better than you actually, because they do their stuff all day long, they got the idea, they got the energy, and you're just from the outside. So it's hard to know, when to jump in and when not to jump in, and just accept that you might not be heard. That's part of the game, but it's very difficult. At the beginning you want to say, well, I did this mistake, don't do it again, and you can't do this, and you're very adamant.
As Michael says, there's nobody else than a founder or a team that spends 24/7 thinking about the topic that is going to be in a better position to take advice, filter it, and decide what to do. As an advisor, I suggest, and then the entrepreneur decides. That's how it always works.
VCs are by definition hands-on with minority stakes, so they have to be, okay, they are shareholders for sure, but they also are huge influencers and connectors and mentors and so on and so forth.
It's very common for an investor to keep a long-term relationship with an executive or a founder because they might interact with your companies at multiple occasions.
It is definitely when the entrepreneur and his investors agree on a vision and align their interests that it becomes possible to boost their company. It turns out that Silicon Valley entrepreneurs can also find a huge support with incubators or accelerators. We're going to visit the two main accelerators of the Bay Area, which happen to be two of the most famous in the world.
My name is Marvin Liel. I'm a partner of 500 Startups. We're here in the San Francisco office of 500 Startups, which I run. 500 Startups is a global seed fund that also happens to run a very well-known accelerator. They're coming to our program mainly for the access to expertise, the access to the sort of like the online marketing, B2B sort of like customer acquisition sort of expertise. That's the main reason they're joining. I don't think most people are joining because of like they want the net $112,500 in the program. That's not why they're doing this. I think for us, our program is really focused around sort of growth and distribution, so sales and marketing, customer acquisition. And so any company that comes to the program, our goal is to make sure that they are able to understand not just the fundamentals, but are able to execute and actually deliver on actually being able to sort of grow their customer base. Typically, every week we have about 4 to 5 workshops or talks. And then in between, we usually have like just the ad hoc meetings and weekly meetings that we have with the teams just to track their metrics and to basically to help them on whatever issues that they actually have. And so a lot of times it's just like they should be here, sitting here, working on their business if they're not meeting with us or meeting with other people in the program.
It's very startup-y. If you're here, you can tell it's an open office plan.
500 has given me all the tools to be successful as an entrepreneur. Maybe not this week or the following week. Maybe these things will help me within a year, but maybe it helps me within 10 years. It's good to, train yourself to the best of your abilities, push yourself to the best of your abilities.
500 Startup is definitely a great structure to support promising entrepreneurs, just like Y Combinator.
I'm the partner in charge of admissions for who we decide to fund, as well as just a partner who works here. Yeah. Our business model is to fund companies at the early stage. So we invest $120,000 and we get 7% of the company. We have partners that have a lot of experience. We funded a lot of the best startups in Silicon Valley, folks like Airbnb, Dropbox, and that network and that expertise is what makes this a good place for good founders to go. And so I think it's that network that it's the biggest difference between this and other places, even though the business is very similar. Airbnb is worth tens of billions of dollars at this point, and people use all over the world. I think if you talk to the founders, they credit YC a lot with their success. They had started the site, it wasn't really taking off, they were about ready to give up, and going into YC was sort of a last-ditch effort before they went and got jobs. And what they got out of YC was, honestly, focus and hope. And by hope, I mean they got a lot of encouragement from the YC partners that actually it was a good idea, because they were so used to everyone telling them it's a bad idea and telling them to give up and that it's never going to work. So there was a lot of negativity around them. And Paul Graham really saw the value of Airbnb and saw how it could be big, and pushed them really hard to focus. I believe that during YC he told them to really focus on getting New York to take off. Instead of trying to get it to take off all over the US, he was like, go to New York, go there, spend all your time there when you're not here. So he would tell them to go fly out and talk to your users, spend time. One of the things that they did is that they would personally go stay in the Airbnbs of their hosts. Like the founders would come stay with you, and so that way they could talk to you and learn your feedback. Does that make sense? So it's like, say you're like, oh, I'm gonna put my apartment on Airbnb, then you would get your first booking, and it would be one of the Airbnb founders, and they would come sleep on your couch, and they would like become friends with you, and they would ask you for feedback and all of that stuff. And so during YC, they kind of got hope again, or they got belief again that it could be a big thing. And definitely if you hear them tell the story, or what I've read in interviews, they continue to credit that as, if they wouldn't have done YC, they would have just like given up. They were that close.
Airbnb is obviously one of the main successes of Y Combinator. 500 startups being more recent, it is likely that in a few years they will have such amazing stories to tell. One difference, though, between their programs is that 500 Startups offers a co-working space.
I think what makes us very, very different is Y Combinator is a very sort of like off-site sort of driven program. So they meet like once or twice a week. And so most of the companies are typically like not sort of, we believe in co-working. I think that's the biggest part, is that all our companies are here sort of in co-working for like 4 months.
Co-working is indeed one of the values of the work ethics in Silicon Valley. Let's now focus on the resources available to entrepreneurs and the way they boost their company, starting with a co-working space in downtown San Francisco.
We have urban campuses like this where startups come in, they pay a membership fee, and they get content, they get workshops, they get a ton of programming to kind of help level up their company. We are not taking equity like accelerators are doing. We don't have the batch model, so it's not like a brotherhood of like 10 companies that are going through this process together. We have 200 companies with over 700 members. We also offer mentorship, so we have a mentor program in every campus across the country. In San Francisco specifically, it's $550 for a seat like this. It's a hot desk concept, so you can sit anywhere in the campus. There's also $750 desks that are permanent. It's yours, and you can put up your monitors, whatever you like. And then we have bigger suites. So for the companies that are a bit more established, they like to set up their own private offices, and so we have that availability as well.
This is a place where I can come and I can work, and I have sort of a small family that I get to work with, and I've even worked with other people in the Worldwide Garage, and we all sort of feel part of this family, and coming to the space at 9:30 in the morning and working till 6, we get this great rhythm of camaraderie. And then that's elevated by me as a designer. I sit where my developers sit. So if the developers have a bug that is user experience related, there's not some chain of emails and setting up a phone call in 2 days, which would go against our lean practices. They just stand up and they say, Adam, can you come here for a minute? And we have a 10 or 15 minute conversation about what needs to happen, and we work around the bug, or we create a way through the bug very quickly, and we never slow down. And you have to be in a space together, this open space, to be able to do those sorts of things.
I always recommend that entrepreneurs get any kind of help that they can. And oftentimes that's not just one piece of help or advice, it's finding a series of support throughout the life of the company. That might be at Stanford, that might be at Berkeley, that might be in France or somewhere entirely different. What matters is the resources and getting the help that you need.
Incubators and others, they give away a lot of information that's very useful. And I think you can do it without. There is no reason why you couldn't build this network yourself. But doing it so quickly, I mean, after 3 months, you really get connected really quickly, it would be really hard.
Bill Gates or others, they didn't have accelerators or anything else. So I don't know, but I think there's plenty of great resources. I don't believe resources by themselves make great entrepreneurs. And so I think there's certain entrepreneurs who are going to go and do it on their own and make it happen. And I think those others are going to use those resources, and the ones that are really, driven and successful and desire, they'll be able to put those resources together to really help accelerate or, turbocharge their opportunity.
Everything is about working hard, and Zusk founder Alex Mayer uses a metaphor to emphasize how important that is.
Like, we grow up soft because our parents take care of us. But business is like a bare-knuckle battle, right? So it is a little bit of that thinking that nothing ever goes as planned, and you need to go with such overwhelming force that you always win. That's not just commitment. That is capital, that is like hiring people. Basically go from the mentality of scarcity to the mentality of abundance. It's a mental switch.
We are at the University of Southern California in Los Angeles, where serial entrepreneur Thomas Knapp explains to us that he didn't raise any money and did his utmost to bootstrap his businesses.
The way we raise money is you bought one, you sold it, now you had a little bit more money, you could go buy two after a while. So we really did that, and that's part of the real advantage of starting in college, is that you, in a lot of cases, you don't have what we call baggage. You don't have house payments, you don't have, kids that you're covering and things like that. So you look at this opportunity of, hey, if I could stay on someone's couch, I can eat a lot of ramen noodles, I can, do a lot of things that you don't, so you can plow a lot of that money back in.
So when we arrived, we ended up in Palo Alto in a very small apartment that we rented month to month. And the first thing we did is just pick up the car of a friend who was here for work. It was Mountain View actually, and we went to, I think it was Walmart, and we picked up plastic chairs, a plastic table, and one of those airbeds that we put on the floor of the very small apartment. It was just a small apartment with a kitchenette, just something to cook on pots, and that's how we started. Like a bunch of folding chairs and a plastic table and laptops, and we were sleeping with not my co-founder, but my roommate that I actually mentioned that I met at CERN. He came with us for the startup at the beginning, and we were sleeping on that mattress, and it was horrible. Every time someone was moving, it was like waking up the other person because of all this plastic noise. But this was kind of interesting step. Then we moved to a much bigger house, actually still in Palo Alto on University Ave, which is kind of the very famous University Ave. It leads to Stanford, and that's where companies like Google, Facebook kind of started. We got lucky, we got a cottage there, and it was kind of what you can see in the Silicon Valley TV show, in a way, computers everywhere, a garage full of computers for the cluster because we were running a GPU cluster there. Yeah, exactly what you see in the TV show. I still have pictures of that, and I'm reminiscing from that time. It was kind of amazing. Now it's a normal life. It's not like kids in the garage playing Lego.
I mean, you have to admire all these companies and all these entrepreneurs and people that are at times they're putting everything on the line, and they're putting everything that they have out there just for an idea that they're trying to make and do. And you can call that the American dream, or you can call that whatever you want, but it really just comes down to a ton of hard work and a ton of luck and a ton of just making it happen.
Like Tito Hamzi, we admire and feel inspired by all those very hard workers and smart entrepreneurs that we are meeting. Doing startup is definitely very, very hard, but when you manage to go through all the steps that we've seen so far, and provided that your company keeps growing, two main options come up: going public or getting acquired. Now, does that necessarily mean great exit for the founders? Certainly not always. That's what we're going to focus on now, in order to understand how the acquisition process works, and then potentially the integration within a larger company.
When you're a startup and you receive an email from any company who wants to acquire you, you feel very excited and proud, and it's a very dangerous feeling, because 9 times out of 10 it won't happen. Either because they're not really interested, or because they're just trying to acquire the team, or for any kind of it's maybe just intelligence, business intelligence. So it's very dangerous to become excited, but you still get excited.
You see every day small startups get pushed around, get taken advantage of, get bad deals, you name it, that is very common.
Selling your company to a larger one does not always mean a bright success for the entrepreneur. Dalton Caldwell boosted his company iMeme to the point that he could sell it to MySpace.
At its peak, there was 25 million registered users. We streamed music across the web. We raised 80 million. I think that's where that number came from. So it was quite large at the time. I think it was number 75 most popular website in the US according to Alexa. So it was pretty big.
However, he sold it around $1 million.
It was around there. It was kind of a complicated deal, but it was definitely less than the amount we raised.
And so this $1 million exclusively went to the investors.
Yeah, like I said, there was a complicated deal with earnouts, but essentially, if you sell your company for less money than you raised, then you don't get any money.
And so in the end, he did not get anything.
That's right, yeah. Yeah.
Sylvan Kalesh is the founder of Holbarton School, a coding school in San Francisco where students do not pay tuition fees, but give a percentage of their salary after they finish the school. But before that, he joined SlideShare as an engineer shortly before the company was acquired by LinkedIn.
When you work for a company, you can get your stock option if you work for a minimum of a year. And so when we got acquired by LinkedIn, I was working as a full-time employee for less than a year. Meaning that in theory I should have got zero, right? I should have got peanuts. But because LinkedIn was nice, they're accelerating my vesting. And so they were like, okay, we'll consider that, you got this much. So I didn't make a great exit, like as people would think.
But sometimes, yes, entrepreneurs can make really great exits, just like Alex.
6 years ago, I would never have guessed I would one day be there. I started my first company in France in 2002. We moved the company to California in 2008 when we raised the Series B. We sold this company, Virtuos, in 2012. And then I started a company called Wit.ai, which is an AI platform for developers. And this company was acquired by Facebook 2 years ago. So now I've been with Facebook since then.
Like Alex, Nicholas met with bright success. After working hard for 2 years on his AI startup called Perceptio, he received an email from a certain Mark Zuckerberg. Because, as ironic as it may seem, he didn't have a Facebook account at the time. Just like Facebook founder and CEO Mark Zuckerberg, the other major companies in the Valley show their interest for very promising tech startups.
Google, just like the other big tech companies, is pretty active in looking at acquisitions, and that's very logical. We've made a lot of pretty good acquisitions in the past. If you think of where our business is today, we have a lot of our really big business pillars that came from acquisition. Think of YouTube, for example. Think of Android as well, that is still pretty much at the core of our mobile strategy. Think of Waze as well in my portfolio. And so these are just a few examples of many acquisitions that we've made across the years. So they matter. Some of them did very well, some of them less so. One thing that's interesting is that culture matters, right? You try to make sure that beyond purely the business question, there's also some degree of cultural fit, so that you get a good sense that the people are going to fit in well into the company.
Facebook has a very interesting approach to acquisitions and tries to keep the startup living inside Facebook and try to not break it down by integrating too fast and too much. So when we joined Facebook, we really became one team inside Facebook, but still the Wit.ai team with our logo, our product, even our culture remained. Has been remaining and expanding for 2 years now. So it's a very interesting approach to integration.
After receiving a proposal by Facebook, among others, Nicholas finally chose Apple for cultural reasons.
I think Apple, there is no book that really translates what kind of experience it is inside. And that was also one of the appeals. I mean, there were multiple appeals. They care about privacy a lot, and we cared about privacy a lot. They really wanted to do mobile deep learning, where everyone was in the cloud. We wanted that. The culture was about products, and we wanted to deliver a really good product, not only technological, because we were coming from technological background, science, but we were interested in learning about how you deliver product in the product cycle, and also about the culture. Just in general, even if it's very secretive, it's really hard to learn about it unless you're inside. So also about this kind of understanding of this immensely successful, arguably, company, right? So that's yeah. So it's really hard. I think it is special. They all have special cultures, and they are all very exciting to work for. I think most of them will have something to offer to you. So it's very depending on your character and what you want to do and achieve in life.
The environment that Facebook provides for small acquired companies like us, like Wit.ai, I didn't think it was possible. Okay, it's the freedom you get. Still, you're part of the larger company, the mission. You're in the family, but you keep some autonomy that makes you very, very efficient. I'm still 2 years after, still very impressed by that.
we've been melting with the whole team, and we shipped a lot of the stuff we produced at Perceptio in the release of the iOS 10, macOS Sierra, and also the iPhone 7 Plus. So a lot of the stuff that we've been infusing at Perceptio has been integrated, at least the seeds have been integrated in the products at Apple. So I'm very, very happy about this, because now my mom can touch the stuff I've been working on for so long. You know, every time she was asking about what are you doing, and I'm like, yeah, you know, research, and then now she can actually touch it on her iPads.
Indeed, big corporations offer a completely different structure than a startup, also with regard to the working conditions.
It's a very different environment. And when you're a small startup, you basically have like little resources. You don't have a lot, so you have to be very frugal, which makes you kind of on the edge and creative. When you're in big corporation, the problems are a little bit different. You have a lot of resources, but you have a lot of corporate red tape in a way. So it's a lot harder to kind of iterate fast, but you can really iterate very, very deeply and have products that are very well integrated. And the human factor is very important there. So you can, you know, talk to a lot of different teams to make sure the product gets released properly. So very different things that you have to learn. Very different environments. You know, small teams versus big corporation.
When you work for a big company, there is a lot of things that are done for you by, you know, tools that are already been built, or by other, you know, co-workers. And then when you create your startup, you're like, oh damn, I need to do, you know, all of it. Like, you know, there is everything to do. After I graduated, I started to work for SlideShare. It was very flat in terms of hierarchy. Like, my boss was a CTO, right? There were not like 10 managers between the founder and me. And then when we got acquired, you know, by LinkedIn, which is a 10,000 employee company, my job totally changed, right? Like, before you might have, you know, one person to do, you know, multiple things, let's say 10 things, and now you have one team of, you know, 6-10 person to do every one of each thing, right? Like, you can produce more quality work, and you can spend more time on details, right, that you might not have the time to do for a startup. As an individual, your perimeter of action is like quite small, right? So you can, you know, really like polish your work.
When joining big corporations, those entrepreneurs discover the standards of Silicon Valley for working for big companies.
Facebook is a very open company. There is a lot of freedom. Like in many Silicon Valley companies, you're judged on the results, not on how many hours you spend during the day. And so some people will start at 7 and end early. I like to start early. Some people will just come from the afternoon, but work all night. That's fine, but it's so obvious. I mean, by Silicon Valley standards, it's completely obvious today. It's not just Facebook. At Facebook, there is no office, private office. Even you know, everybody is in the open space. It's very important to Facebook that it's open. We acknowledge that sometimes there is some noise or you can be disturbed, but the improvement of communication that is brought is bigger than the loss of effectiveness because you have noise. You can also recognize Facebook offices across the world because there is no sailing. Well, there is it looks like it's an industrial building that is not finished. It's a way to say nothing is really finished. It's ongoing, we are building it, it's ongoing, it's not finished, so it's a message actually, it's not a random design.
I honestly think the culture in Silicon Valley for working at companies is awesome. I mean, they give you, it's not, everybody here works super hard, right? But it's not a like hour focused, like you have to work a certain amount of hours or, you know, per week culture. It's more of like, here's the job you need to get done, get it done. If it takes you like 2 hours or if it takes you 20 hours, you know, I don't care how it happens, just get it done. At least that's how I see it, right? But people, they want to do better, they want to do more. So, and then all these perks that are at offices, like, yeah, if you can afford it, why not? Why not have like your ping pong machine, your ping pong tables and your pool tables and all the snacks and food if it just keeps people working.
This is like Disneyland, right? I mean, it's Disney World, I guess. It's like the Club Med. Like, you know, you're basically doing, you know, what you like, and you know, since the since people really like this kind of stuff these days, like you're being paid well and you can have really interesting lives. You know, the price of life, of living here is quite expensive, but still it's Disneyland for people like us, right? I mean, it's like playing Lego all day and you're getting paid really well to do so, and you interact with people all around here that are kind of as passionate as you are, and you can learn a lot, and I don't know, as I said, it's like the Club Med or Disneyland, so like really good conditions in general. I'm really happy here, and I think many are. I think we cannot complain.
If you look around, it's true that that's a little bit what it looks like. Everything is very colorful. People smile more too, and I think it's not only fake. I think there's a real energy and there's a real positive attitude in this place, which is a good thing. Now, is it always fun? No, it's not always fun. We all have problems to solve. We all have challenges, and in my mind, that's okay. You know, there's this concept of sometimes you have to be serious even if you're not wearing a suit. I think is one of those catchphrases. I think it's true. It's not because people they look very relaxed that they're not working seriously. And actually, if you look around, if you walk around the floors at Google, you'll see a lot of people who are actually pretty intensely focused on their work. So we're not just riding yellow bikes and chatting. There's also some hard work, of course.
You might think it's like a Disney World and it's like a Disneyland and everything, all the companies are there, and if I go there, I'm gonna make it big, right? But it's so much harder than that.
Anyone who tells you that being an entrepreneur is easy is fooling you. It's really hard.
Because there's going to be a lot of days that are really tough, things aren't gonna go well, you're gonna hit roadblocks or potholes in the road, and you're gonna have to figure out how to navigate around them.
The first thing I learned when I came here was oh, you can actually fail. And then people ask you, what did you learn from it?
It was such an accepted part of the culture that you can go start a company, that you can go work at a startup. Part of being in the Stanford network or going to school there is to really imagine that you could do this too, and that this is actually a totally valid career path.
Don't make enemies. And think about people you meet as potential future advisors, investors, co-founders, partners. This is what's amazing about an environment like this.
You end up getting something back, ultimately, it seems like. I don't know if it's Buddhist or not, but sometimes some people will have also because they know at some point it will get back to them, right?
There's so many companies and people who are trying for that dream and are trying to make it happen, and they just are putting in hard work. You don't even hear about them or anything. And like I said, you always have to be having fun. So if you're not having fun, what's the point?